I've been putting out quite a few pumpkin videos lately, where the pumpkins are big boys and take a lot of time to make. So maybe I scale things back and quickly customize one tiny Funkin. That's what they're called, right? Funkins? Nobody ever buys these little guys, so on super duper clearance, this was like 10 cents. I'm cutting out the design I drew using an X-Acto knife. I didn't think it would be hollow, but I plunged the full blade in there to make sure that it is, in fact, solid foam all the way through. The skin, which is probably like a latex paint layer, peels off pretty easily. I used the knife to hollow out the exposed foam, and it looks okay, but it would look a lot better if it was properly hollowed out fully. I grab a box cutter and cut out a wedge from the back of the pumpkin using the valleys of the ridges as a guide. It should be easy enough to just put it right back into place once I hollow it out. I could continue using the knife to hollow out the pumpkin, but since I have this hot wire cutter with opposable wire, I'm going to use that. I plan to make these kind of things forever, so I went ahead and bought this kind of pricey one from Hotwire Foam Factory. I thought when I hollowed this out it would reveal the carved design all the way through, but it seems I have to do a little bit more carving. I used a different hot wire tool to melt the design all the way through the foam. Since this is a small pumpkin that's now hollow, it's thin and kind of flimsy, so I thought continuing with a knife might tear out more of the foam than intended and make it even flimsier, so that's why I switched to another hot wire tool. I strengthen up some of the teeth with hot glue from the inside. Then that wedge I cut out gets hot glued back into place. The hot nozzle of the glue gun melts and smooths out any bumps or seam lines caused by the hot glue. You'll never be able to tell that this section was cut out once it gets painted. I wanted to have a more interesting stem, so I made an armature out of aluminum foil and made sure it was fully secured in place with more hot glue. The foil stem gets covered with air dry clay, and I use quite a bit of water, maybe a little bit too much water, while sculpting to keep the stem smooth. I thought it might be cool to put a tea light in this, so I might as well attach it permanently. I removed the cover of the light so I wouldn't need to cut out such a large hole in the bottom. I hot glue over the flame part of the light so it has a bit more of an interesting shape, and hot glue over the flat surface of the light so it doesn't look out of place when it gets glued in. With the new clay stem, the pumpkin has gotten pretty top heavy, so to keep it from constantly tipping over, I need to weigh it down somehow. One washer costs at least 5 cents, but 5 pennies also cost 5 cents. So I hot glue a couple of those in place, and then glue over the top of them so when painted, they'll blend in with the inside, even though you're probably not really going to be able to see that far back anyways. I want the pumpkin to be slanted upward slightly so you can see the face without having to get down, eye to eye with it. So I have to slice a bit more to get it to sit how I want it. Off camera, I painted over the glued in weights with white, and I'm now going to paint the entire inside with some orange sherbet. Tasty. I get the base of the light as well, since that's technically part of the inside of the pumpkin. And I'm going to paint the outside harvest orange. Makes sense. Then the stem gets a coat of English ivy green. All the paint gets sealed with Krylon matte finish. Now the light can get hot glued into place. I removed the battery cover so I wouldn't accidentally glue it shut. I like using wood stain to weather things because it adds a bit of a grimy look, and the color of this stain is dark walnut. I can wipe away any excess and feather out any harsh lines left by the stain. I'm not going to count the dry time on the clay stem or the paint or the wood stain, so it only took about 2 hours of actively working on this pumpkin to complete it. Not everything has to be a huge project, and it can still be fun.